What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. So I want to talk about the Milwaukee Bucks in this video. They're like my second team. My first team is Chicago, but they're definitely my second team. And part of that is because I root for the underdog. Now, for the first 20 years or so of their history, Milwaukee was a really good team. They joined the NBA back in 1968, the first year that the Phoenix Suns joined the NBA. And Milwaukee was an example of an expansion franchise that didn't take too long to become a dominant team. And it doesn't take you too long to become a dominant team when you acquire Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, contrary to what Skip Bayless says. Just 3 years after they joined the NBA as an expansion franchise, they won a championship. And during the 1970s, they appeared in two NBA Finals, 1971 and 1974. They just barely missed winning a second championship against Boston in '74. The series won 7 games. Now, during the 1970s, even after Kareem Abdul-Jabbar left, there were a couple of lean years, but then ultimately they rebounded. Um, and then in the 1980s, for the most part, they were a really good team, borderline great team. As a matter of fact, as I've said countless times over and over and over again, they were the best team in the 1980s in the NBA not to make it to the NBA Finals. But then starting around 1989, they started falling off, started falling downhill. And for the most part, between 1989 and 2017-ish or so, they were a bad franchise. Now, they did have a little renaissance with, you know, Sam Cassell, Ray Allen, Glenn Big Dog Robinson, 2001, 2002 or so. But other than that, they've been a mediocre to bad team. But Giannis has brought this team back to prominence. And with a roster that complements him very well, they turned it around. They became a 60-win team. And after a little bit of disappointment in the playoffs, they finally broke through last year, winning a championship. Now, the reason why I'm doing this video is because I'm a little bit concerned about Milwaukee. I'm a little bit concerned about them because right now they stand fifth in the Eastern Conference. And after a disappointing loss last night to the Atlanta Hawks ended the Milwaukee Bucks streak this season. Before last night, I think the Bucks were something like 23-0 when they had a lead going into the fourth quarter. That ended because Atlanta outscored them something like 38 to, I can't remember the score now, 38 to 18 or 38 to 22 or something like that in the fourth quarter. And Atlanta had been doing really bad, man. They had lost 10 consecutive, I think, home games until the Bucks allowed them to come back. And this is my thing with the Bucks. On the one hand, when they're playing against the best teams in the NBA, they're up for those games. Uh, they recognize that these are challenging games. These are games where they have to up the ante, and they play at a championship level. And usually, Giannis Antetokounmpo plays like the MVP caliber candidate that he can be. The problem with the Bucks, and this is what it's starting to remind me of those Cavalier teams that LeBron were on from 2015 to 2018. The problem with those Cavalier teams is that during the regular season, they got lackadaisical. They were one of the worst regular season championship caliber teams we've seen. You know, when you look at how poor the Eastern Conference was, and you look at their record, you're like, why in the world is this team only 50-32? Why is this team only 53-29? They have no competition in the Eastern Conference. in the Eastern Conference. They should be like 66-16 or something, 63-19. Now, granted, the Eastern Conference is a lot more competitive. I understand that. But Milwaukee loses way too many games that they should be winning. Milwaukee, in my opinion, is still better than the Orlando Magic, the Detroit Pistons of the world. Um, they're still better, in my opinion, even though I understand that you're going to lose some games. I think they still should be beating the lower tier teams. And they've lost to the teams I've just mentioned, I think, multiple times. Sometimes, I get it. When you win a championship, you're looking forward to the postseason. I think this Bucks team is no longer interested in just trying to get the best record and have home court. They're not interested in that anymore because that has failed them in the past. Last year they won a championship being the third seed. So they have proven that they can win on the road. They believe they can win on the road. But you don't want to test fate too much though. You don't want to keep on playing to level of the competition and think you can just turn it on and turn it off, turn it on, turn it off, and that can catch up with you. Now I understand, look, what's helping the Milwaukee Bucks is a couple of things. The Chicago Bulls are on a downturn right now, losing three straight games. Brooklyn Nets, of course, will be without Kevin Durant for at least a month. The situation going on with Kyrie Irving, he is adamant that he will not take the elixir, so he will only be available for home games. For road games, and that doesn't include games in Canada or against the Knicks. James Harden is inconsistent, and those are the two main teams that will be, I think, contenders to Milwaukee, and they all have issues. The Bulls are a really good team, but as the season has progressed now, we really can see that the Bulls still are missing a couple of pieces from being a legitimate championship team. And Philly is just Philly, man. Philly, I'm past the point where Philly fools me now. Philly might look good during the regular season, but in the playoffs, it's just something with this team. So I'm not convinced with Philly. One team that I think I would be afraid of right now, if I were the Milwaukee Bucks or the Brooklyn Nets, or even possibly the Bulls, is the Cleveland Cavaliers. They're fourth in the Eastern Conference right now. And Cleveland, to me, could have potentially, they could have potentially a run like Atlanta did last year, where they don't have any pressure. No one is expecting them to do any fucking thing. So at the end of the day, they could go on one of these fucking runs and beat one of these, teams that's fucking around or is limited with because of like the Nets and that, and it's just the problem. The thing about Milwaukee that concerns me is that people already feel like their championship isn't legitimate. And usually, when a team tries to repeat, it's a lot difficult, much more difficult. And teams are coming at you; they want to beat you because you're the champion. And I just worry about certain things with this team. Some of these younger players on the team, I'll never question Giannis, Bobby Portis, Drew Holiday when he plays. He's been hurt. Middleton is inconsistent offensively, but for the most part, he's going to bring his game. It's some of these other players that I'm not trusting. Some of these new faces I'm not trusting. Then you got to look at the health of this team. DiVincenzo is always fucking, janky. Um, you know, Brooke Lopez has only played one game this year. I haven't heard anything about him. Like, is he still alive? At this point, um, there's some issues going on with this team, man. And Mike Budenholzer, he's not the type of coach. He's not exactly Bobby Knight out there. Sometimes you wonder whether he's preparing this team sufficiently, motivating them, getting on them about playing hard and not taking nights off and not playing down to level your opponent, which can catch up with you. And that's what I'm concerned about. They're not going to fire Mike Budenholzer because they just won a title. But you know, that's the thing about this team. Um, I have a feeling, a suspicion that when the playoffs hit, they're going to turn that switch and they're going to be, the Bucks that we saw last year for the most part in the playoffs. What will their seeding be? Um, right now they're currently fifth. When you look at history, there's only been one team that has won a championship with a lower seed. That was the '95 Rockets. They had to play every damn game on the road. Every series as a road team, as far as home court advantage. That's a tall task for anybody. The second lowest is the '69 Celtics, who were the fourth seed. So seed does matter, even for championship teams. So at the end of the day, I think Milwaukee needs to get more serious if they want to repeat as champions. Now, as far as my Bulls are concerned, um, I'm not. I think we're a couple of pieces away. I think we could. I think we're good enough if the seeding is right. I think we're good enough to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. But I'm not. I'm not convinced that we can go to the finals. Um, if I had to say what team I favor coming out of the East right now, because of the circumstances, I still would favor Milwaukee. But Milwaukee's has some bad habits they need to correct. But anyway, that's all I got to say in this video. Tell me what you guys think.